Good evening, freaks and friends, and welcome to Math Bites. I'm your host, Math Machine, and today, as you can notice by the title up there, if YouTube hasn't changed this like a year from now again, and I look like a complete jackass pointing into the nothingness, today I will be talking about animation. Well, actually ranting about it because I like to be angry and I like to just go on topics for long, extended periods of time. And this is only episode 2, so boy, that didn't take long. Now, I bring this up because over the weekend I saw I was actually given uh, a link to something by a friend of mine. I was told, hey, check this out. There's going to be a new Charlie Brown movie. It's actually going to get theatrical release and everything. And I thought, oh, cool. That is going to be so awesome. I grew up on the Charlie Brown movies. I love Charlie Brown stuff. And then he said, oh, it's going to be in CGI. And I was like, you fucking me? Really? CGI? For the one character that's been like hand drawn and is so reminiscent in that particular style, has been for like, what has it been, 50, 60 years, is getting a CGI movie? And then I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, they actually nailed the style down pretty well. I think I could enjoy this. I just really hope that they don't mess it up like they have been for a while lately with animated movies based off of long-standing intellectual properties. But that's another topic for another time. What I'm wanting to talk to you about now is that I am a big animation guy. I grew up on, well, everyone grew up on animated movies, but I guess I never grew out of that phase. And I am a really big animation freak, and animated shows, animated movies. Generally speaking, I prefer these over live action stuff. There's a few exceptions here and there, but generally, I much prefer in any given year the animated stuff over the live action stuff, hands down. Uh, and I am, I guess, old school because I much prefer the hand-drawn style to the CGI style. That's not to say that I don't like CGI. I do when it's done right. And ever since the '90s, they've been using CGI for backgrounds and a lot of other stuff like that within hand-drawn stuff, and that looks superb. They know how to do that, and that can be done masterfully to enhance the already excellent-looking hand-drawn styles. What I didn't like for the longest time was, especially early on in the when Toy Story became popular, well, was released and instantly became popular, a good number of other companies jumped on the bandwagon, and oh boy, there was just a slew of horrible, horrible looking CGI movies and shows and everything else like that. Like, there were a few things before Toy Story or right around Toy Story that were CGI as well, and they looked, by today's standards, they looked bad. Back then, they looked incredible. But they still made an effort. They tried. They made a story with it. It's just that they found that the CGI style would work better for it. Like Reboot is a good example of a show I will use, which is 20 years old now. And the fact that I can remember a show that's 20 years old makes me feel old. But Reboot was, I think, the first television series to use full CGI. And by today's standards, it looks like shit. Oh, it looks like crap. But back then, it was excellent. It was high quality. And they had well, initially it was kind of a goofy, silly computers story. But it got really, it progressed really well. And it got dark as it went on. And it was a really good show because they didn't treat it like, oh, this is CGI. That's what makes it good. They actually put effort behind it. That's something that reboot Rednecks or Roughnecks. That was another one that was really good, and I am sad that they never finished that because I loved that series as a kid, and it was just something so fun to watch. And the universe was so incredible. I was just hooked into it. Like other shows like Beast Wars, yeah, they looked bad and they were kind of corny and dorky. But as a kid, they were pretty good. And sure, it was made to sell toys, but I mean, it was more in that regard. They made more of an effort than some of the other made to sell toy shows like Street Sharks. There's a prime example of a show that was made for no purpose other than we want to rip off Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and we want to sell toys. What's the story? It. So it's not that I have anything against CGI. It's that CGI from about the late 90s to mid 2000s was just used as the excuse for we are trying to do something new and progressive. This doesn't. It's going to be incredible because it's CGI. They forgot that in order to make a good animated movie, you need a good story behind it. Pixar, I know I'm using the prime example that everyone uses all the time, but Pixar is the one studio that never forgot that. And their CGI, a lot of places use CGI that tries to look realistic from about the early to mid 2000s. And even now, if there's been a few movies that have tried for a somewhat realistic CGI look, but Pixar never went with that. They always went with their specific style, their kind of toony-ish style. Like sometimes it could be passed off as looking pretty impressive. Most of the time you looked at that and went, yeah, that looks pretty toony. But they went with that and it worked for them, and they made their movies not because they were CGI, but because they just liked that style better, and they were better at that than they were at hand drawing, and kudos on them. One of my, probably, this is in my top 5, and it's pretty darn close to my favorite film of all time, Wall-E. There is a movie that I could never, ever see in a hand-drawn style. It can't be done. It worked so beautifully as CGI, and you just can't recreate some of the things that they did in a hand-drawn style, and it just made it so impressive and incredible, and just added to the whole level of emotion in that movie. It was the story working with the style, and Pixar knows how to do that masterfully. Cars. Yeah, that. And they just know what they're doing with it, and that's why I find that they are always the golden example of animation as far as CGI is concerned, because they didn't really start it, but they mastered it, and they continue to, as long as you don't count Cars. But especially what's happening lately is a lot of cartoon shows are becoming CGI, and I can't for the life of me understand why, because it takes as much development team and it takes as much time and effort, probably just about as much money, as it would to make a just hand-drawn show. And some of these CGI shows that they have just look butt ugly. I don't get why. One example that I always use is Star Wars: The Clone Wars, not the Genndy Tartakovsky series that came out before Episode 3, because that was incredible. That was probably the only good thing about the prequel movies, was that you got that hand drawn animated series, and that looks so good. Why could they not do a Clone Wars series like that? Oh wait, it would require hiring Tartakovsky, which Cartoon Network seems to have issues with. Simmer jerk. But so the Star Wars Clone Wars CGI series, it looks like shit. It honestly does. It looks like something out of like a PS2, an early PS2 game at that. And it's just like, who in their right mind said, I like this style. It's blocky. It looks like it's 10 years old, and it just has a feel for it that is the feeling is clunk. People will love it. No, I can't stand to watch that show because I literally cannot stand to watch it. It doesn't matter. I have tried. I have genuinely tried, and I cannot watch it based on look alone because I can't stand to stare at it. It burns my eyes. It doesn't help that it's in the Star Wars prequels universe, and that I just do not like the a few of the characters I do like from that, but generally speaking, I don't. Uh, and that is also another reason I don't watch that show, but it is primarily based on I can't stand to look at it. Another example is actually like Fanboy and Chum Chum, if anybody remembers that show. Cartoon Network for the longest time just hyped. I'm sorry, not Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon hyped that up for the longest time. And I think after 2 seasons, they pretty much just sent it to the abyss. I think that they might still be making new episodes for it, but they don't really advertise anything for it. I think that I'm pretty sure they just show reruns of it these days. But it was actually, I do think that the style for that works for it, because they were trying for an ultra hyper spastic kind of annoying character duo, and the animation style works really nicely with that. That being said, if you've ever seen like the introductions to each of the episodes, there will be a hand-drawn cell with the episode name to it, and those I think look incredible. I would love to see what a Fanboy and Chum Chum series would have been like had it been drawn in that style rather than CGI. I think that both could have worked really nicely. I'm just going off the CGI one, which I think that they actually did well based on what they were going for. The show itself is kind of mediocre, kind of annoying. It's not terrible, but it's not what I would consider good either. If you're looking to kill time, you could do worse. But if you're looking for an example of CGI that it doesn't look, the CGI doesn't look great, but it's filling the purpose that it was intended for, to match the style of the show, that is a perfect example, actually. It's and hand-drawn shows. Ugh, there's so many bad hand-drawn shows too. The example that I use right now for my most detested hand-drawn show is Teen Titans Go, because why not take a show that was really popular for a good 5-odd years and condense it down to everything that was wrong with it as a 2-minute skit, as like a 2-minute like web series that has just little 2-minute episodes? That would probably work. But as a full-blown 15-minute episode show, it doesn't. It just, the voice acting is good because it's the original voice acting crew and they know what they're doing. The problem is there is no dialogue to speak of. There is no character growth. There is no any kind of development. It is just stupid, low grade crap humor for the sake of appealing to the people. Well, not even appealing to the people who like the original show. It's made to just use the names, and it's one of those kind of shows that it actually does look kind of good. It looks good, but because it's in sort of a chibi style that works for what they're going for. But it's just a horrible show. That there is no word working around it. It is just horrible for little kids. Yeah, it's fine, but for people who actually like me, who have come to want something more than just something to fill my time and something like background noise, it wouldn't even work for me as background noise. It is just bad, and that's a shame because the style for it is actually kind of nice for what they were going for. They just couldn't make it work. But that brings me to my ultimate point: is that uh, these CGI movies and shows, I got nothing against them. It's that more often, for the longest time, they were just, oh, we're CGI. We don't need a story. We're going to be good because we're CGI. And I'm glad that recently, in the last 2, 3 years, 5 maybe, other than Pixar, studios have been realizing that they actually need to go back and make good stories to go with these. Uh, Bolt, uh, Tangled, Frozen recently. I know these are all Disney ones, but Disney in the early mid 2000s was doing kind of bad. I think Lilo and Stitch was the last good movie that they made for the longest time, and then they made Frog Princess. Well, I think they made Bolt first, but that was kind of like their own foray into CGI, and they did a good jump into it. Then there was Frog Princess, which was incredible. I was really looking forward to classic hand-drawn Disney cartoons, and then we got Tangled and Frozen. So I'm not upset that we don't have classic hand-drawn Disney cartoons. I'm actually happy because the styles look beautiful for what they were doing, and I don't think that they could have worked as hand-drawn. They put their souls into it, and they made it work. And for what they were going for, that really does work nicely. And uh, I really do look, and there's a good number of DreamWorks movies are another example. They've gone pretty much full CGI. They don't do any hand drawn anymore. And I did like DreamWorks hand drawn stuff too, but they generally do pretty well with it. Like the next movie they have coming out, I believe, is Peabody and Sherman, and I am actually looking forward to that because it looks like they uh, are going to make a decent effort at it. And even though the characters look vaguely reminiscent of the old hand drawn styles, which this was Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon, so that's not really saying much. You didn't go for the style; you went for the comedy, and they did comedy pretty well. Uh, it looks like a nice, clean CGI style, and it looks like they might actually. It looks like it's going to be pretty good, and I hope that it is. It's the same with the. Which brings me back to the Peanuts movie that's coming out next year. It looks really nice, really smooth. It looks like they captured the hand-drawn style spot on, and I hope that they can just capture the characters and the spirit of the comics, the shows, the movies, in the same way that they capture the looks. Because if they can do that, I think that they're going to succeed with the Peanuts movie. And I hope that Hollywood can take a lesson from this. Is that we don't want stuff that just looks good or is nice to watch, a la Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which had probably the most realistic looking CGI, bar none. It had no story though, and we couldn't stand to watch it because It looked great, but it just was terrible. It was a horrible movie. As a demonstration, it was great. And I don't want these upcoming movies to be the same thing. I don't want these to be a demonstration for how good CGI has become and how good we can make characters look. I want them to be a demonstration for how they can assist in the storytelling that used to be exclusive to hand-drawn movies. And I actually have confidence in that these days, and I'm really looking forward to the next year or two because I think that they're going to be pretty good for both hand drawn and CGI, and I hope that I'm not proven wrong by that. Anyway, this has been Math Machine. Thank you for listening to my 21-minute ramble about my obsession with anime movies and shows. And I'll see you next time. Peace out.